everybody. Thanks for attending a Thursday webinar. We don't usually do them on Thursdays. This one's special. This is Liz Downing, e-commerce marketing manager at Takeometrics. I've got my good friend Chris Fryburger, CEO and founder of nReach with me. Say hi, Chris.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, it's so good to see you. So a couple housekeeping items as I see people are still popping into the GoToWebinar. We are recording this. That's usually the first question people ask. So this will be recorded. It will be sent to you if you registered for this webinar. We do also encourage questions. In the GoToWebinar panel, there's a little questions section. Just go ahead and pop your question in there. We'll take those as we're rolling through what we're talking about today because we like this to be an open conversation. If you don't know who Takeometrics is the best company ever. And also we help sellers and brand owners who sell on Amazon and Walmart optimize their advertising and also make great decisions about their businesses because of the amount of data we're able to show them about their world and their different ASINs and products. So if you want to know more about that, just contact me. I'll be providing my email address at the end of this webinar. But let's talk a little bit about Chris. Chris has the coolest title, I think, that has ever existed. He is the Amazon matchmaker, and I am so jealous that he thought of that before I did. But Chris, let's talk a little bit about nReach, how you got into e-commerce, how you got into helping sellers and brand owners and all that jazz.
Sure. Well, first of all, Liz, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to interact with you, and it's a wonderful day here in Cincinnati. But I am having some technical difficulties, so I'm not normally in front of a green screen. So
well, he said technical difficulties, but I forgot to tell him that GoToWebinar doesn't support a virtual background. So there he is, ready for a virtual background and doesn't get to have one. So that's on me, not on him.
It won't affect the content, I hope. So,
no.
But, yeah. So I again appreciate you having me on. nReach was really as a sort of a reaction to the fact that the advertising agency world, the traditional digital world that's been around for 20 years or so, hasn't reacted to Amazon pretty much at all. And so about 3 years ago, I was working with some agencies, working with big clients, P&G and others, and really, they turn to their agencies. You do our creative, you do our ad campaigns, you do our social, you do our influencer, all of that stuff for us, all our e-commerce site, our D2C presence, all the campaigns around that. But what about Amazon? And so for the most part, the answer from their traditional ad agencies is still nothing. And so I looked over, and in this ecosphere of Amazon, you see these young agencies that you deal with every day and that we all know, young sellers building tools and selling on Amazon, but there's really no one vetting those guys. And so if you're a Fortune 500 brand, you're looking for a professional Amazon agency of a certain size, maybe expertise in a certain category, XYZ, whatever those criteria are. I help match brands to those agencies amidst other things. But basically the root of nReach is matchmaking between brands and services they need on Amazon.
I dig that so much because I kind of do a lot of that too. I don't know what I am.
You're a trusted networker of mine, yes.
I guess I'm definitely a networker, and I aim to be trustworthy, but I've done a lot in my previous time at ecommerce and now at my time at Takeometrics of doing that matchmaking. I mean, obviously one company doesn't do it all. So understanding the industry and understanding the players in the industry, understanding how it works, how you choose who to trust, all that kind of stuff has been pretty important, which is why I was super jealous of your title, because I was like, hey, I kind of do that too.
We'd be great at it.
We're both really good at it. It's just a mutual admiration society. But I have obviously a bit of a technology stance on things, and I've got kind of some insights on software providers and what kind of software you might need and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not, just going to be selling you Takeometrics the whole time today, because there are other things that you need in terms of your software stack. And there are times that you need a full service agency. There are times that you don't. There are decision factors that go into choosing your service and software providers. So Chris and I are going to go through that today and just sort of anecdotally tell you some stories tell you about some brands that we've worked with, tell you about certain service providers, tell us about certain organizations that it might be helpful to join and that kind of stuff. But
Mhm.
again, if you've got questions, and we actually have a question right now. Oh, thank you, Omar. Omar says, I'm a brand evangelist, or Chris is, we're both brand evangelists. Um,
Thanks.
so Chris and I are both part of also of a group of providers like us and friends of providers, um, that Shannon Roddy put together. And Shannon's somebody that I recommend a whole lot. He's got
Absolutely.
the brand Amazon Brand Success Academy, and we'll link to that in the show notes because that is, like, as far as I'm concerned, the most definitive, complete course on how to get started selling on Amazon and how to succeed on Amazon. It's amazing. He's one guy, and he's
Agreed.
managed to put all that together. But he put together this group of Amazon brand consultants, and Chris and I are both in that. And Chris actually put a question out to the group. Hey, like, what do you think the biggest pain points are for people, for brands that are trying to choose a software or service provider, trying to go with a strategist or a solution? And I think the answers kind of across the board were sort of rooted in budget.
Yep.
But talk to me a little bit about how a brand should look at their internal business and then look at choosing partners and solutions to help
Sure.
them scale and grow.
Sure. And I want to tackle that budget question, but we'll table that for the moment. But it's your question's it's a broad question in the sense that, and it's also relatively an easy question. The reason is that the same logic you would vet any sort of service provider applies here, right? You want to look at obviously who they are, what their capabilities truly are. You want to ask for references. You want to look at their work. You want to ask for results. You want to kind of quiz them. You also want to like them because you're probably going to interact with these people more than maybe your spouse. And maybe, I don't want to say more important, but certainly from a monetary standpoint, it's that kind of important relationship, and it can be that difficult for me to match two people that end up having to get married and that kind of thing. And so there's a lot of basic considerations in there, but with the Amazon label on it, there's some special ones, right? And there's things on top of hiring just an advertising agency that apply to Amazon, right? And so the long-winded answer is, just do your homework, right? When choosing a provider. But there's really some unique things in this space that you're going to need to look for, right? Unique capabilities around Amazon, but which also aren't maybe necessarily tied to traditional advertising stuff. Like, so for instance, can your advertising agency help you with your logistics, or can your advertising agency help you with your legal issues or VAT tax or things along those lines? And you're seeing some of that. But for now, just staying at the marketing layer of your agency, getting your listing up, brand protection, reviews, hopefully down at the end of the line, you're doing something with live and post, right? There are very, very few agencies in this space that exist that do all of those things. And so you have to look exceptionally closely for a unicorn, which is essentially what you're trying to find here. So, but
Or you
or
don't go with a full service agency. You kind of pick and choose a la carte your software and service providers. You have to be super smart about it. But it's sort of like you've got your cable package, or you cut the cord and you choose your streaming services to fill your needs, right? I just recently did that, so it's on my mind. So like, I have my flat fee that I pay for my internet, and then I've got Hulu and Disney Plus, and I don't ever watch that, but and Netflix and all, of course, Amazon. But there are a lot of the full service agent, and you say advertising agency, but a lot of advertising agencies are full service. They do listing optimization. They
sure.
do all sorts of different things.
Yes.
For instance, we handle your advertising and your data, and we don't optimize your listing. We don't do that we don't create your store. We don't do your photography or your images or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those full service agencies, and there are such good ones out there.
There are a lot of bad ones too, but yes.
There are a lot of bad ones, and there are a lot more of them in this space than there used to be. Holy moly, there are. But there are some that have just been around forever and are killing it. They're just doing a great job. They're growing. They're buying other agencies.
Yes.
but
Sure.
they come with a price tag, right? So if you're just getting started, or if you're a small brand who's just launched on Amazon, or a mom and pop, you're just at a certain point, you've only got a certain amount of money per month, there
Yes.
it is possible to a la carte choose the services and software that solve your pain points, and it's not a flat retainer fee to an agency. And there are pros and cons to both ways. And I definitely don't want to tick off any of my agency owners or employees because I love them so much. And I don't want to make Chris mad at me. But I think that this is probably a great format, is that Chris can talk about what to look for in a full service agency, and I can sort of give you tips on, if you can't or don't want to pay for a full service agency, here are the main things you need to think about, and here's how you vet software and service providers on your own.
Exactly. And I would say there's like maybe stages, right? So if you're a mom and pop and honestly you can't even afford you guys, right? You might hire like or buy Shannon's courses and teach yourself,
60
right?
bucks a
So
month, anybody can afford us.
sure.
It's
And
fine.
if you have the time and effort and awesome, and albeit it might be a little harder than it was in the day, but you can do this yourself. It's just a time cost kind of thing. But that said, then maybe the layer two, if you're a mid-sized or say a small brand, yes, we can put your agency together in pieces, and it's more affordable that way. Software can do a lot of things also if you want to go that way. Also awesome. But if you're a mid-tier potentially, and certainly a larger like Fortune 1000 brand, I mean, you really end up needing a team and maybe that full service package. And I would just say, so I'm going to push back into some of that larger clientele do need that sort of truly a full service agency, and that even that definition can be played with a little bit as well. So.
Well, and I don't want to argue with you, but I
Oh,
also know lots of really, really big brands that what their strategy is to hire internal people to do certain things, right?
yes.
So they've got internal people who have been trained up, understand how to create Amazon listings that convert. They've got an in-house photography studio, they've got the e-commerce department, and they just need help with one or two things.
Yes.
Or they get in a situation where they need a Chris McCabe, where it's a one-off, oh my
Sure.
gosh, I've got something's on
Delisted.
fire.
Yeah, he's on for
Yeah.
delisting. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, well, yeah. Oh, so suspension
Yeah.
and ASIN suspension, that kind of stuff. He
Uh,
helps you get reinstated.
yes.
We'll link to him too, because you guys, I mean, if you know me, you probably know Chris because I talk about Chris all the time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I just clarify. I think yeah, he's suspensions, right? He's specializing in
yeah, yeah, suspension, like account suspensions, ASIN suspensions, warnings, that kind of stuff.
that.
I guess he decided to give back because at Amazon, when he worked at Amazon, he was in charge of suspending people. So now he helps people get write their appeals, your plans of action, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's super helpful if you're a huge brand, especially, and you get your Amazon account suspended. That Amazon doesn't say, oh, you're a huge brand, so you broke this rule, or we think you broke this rule, so we're going to let you off the hook anyway because you're so big. They don't do that.
Yeah. And
Anybody,
yeah,
anybody can get suspended.
and I wouldn't say maybe that might be a service that you might not get from your advertising agency, right? I mean, focusing on marketing and that, as you say, a one-off, absolutely correct. It's just the difficulty is I think it's just getting harder and harder to sell on Amazon. I think just all the processes and applications and the polishing that needs to happen constantly, the tools that are necessary, right, and the like. And it's just for a larger brand. We're talking about budget. If you have the budget for that, you know, somebody that might use the right, a larger team would be applicable, right? I also contend that maybe full service backs into the other advertising, which is more applicable in this space. So, for instance, AdWords can drive traffic to your Amazon listing, or what is the SEO ranking of your Amazon listing, right? That's a little mind bender, but think about that. And there's tools as far as attribution, but again, there's traditional social over there matching to Amazon social. There's Amazon PPC, or I'm sorry, Google PPC matching Amazon PPC. So there's a one-to-one on both of these, but the old world still now is applying. So what is your D2C website doing? Like that's where you want them to convert after they buy on Amazon. You really want to drive them to the next purchase to D2C, right? Do you have a campaign to drive all that? Well, again, all of that requires a traditional PPC person and an Amazon PPC person. It requires an SEO person and so it requires really a full agency, if you will, to walk into, say, like a Procter and Gamble, to say, look, we're gonna marry up to your existing Purell campaigns, right? The ones that you're spending, Celine Dion's on the TV and those type of things. But here's how we're gonna bring that into Amazon, and that requires just actually requires an agency that doesn't exist right now. But we can talk about that as well. But I digress.
Yeah, that's true. Because you were talking about like, what do you need? Do you just need PPC everywhere? Do
Yeah,
you need product photography? Do you need social media? Do you need
video, yeah, short video, yeah,
video? Do you need video for DSP? Do you need video for Amazon Live? Do you need
right.
somebody to go live for you? And finding an agency that does every single one of those things is difficult. Like, not a lot of people are working with the lives right now.
No, I actually know only a couple that I would say respectable with live and posts, and those are fledgling programs by Amazon themselves, and they've fallen down on those a couple times too. So, to be able to even participate in that stuff is fringe stuff, even in our sphere, much less covering all the other what you and I think are basics, but even the basics aren't even been done properly. So
Cascadia is kind of rocking the live thing. They're really seeing some good conversions for their customers.
they are, and that was one of the two I also mentioned. Like Pody is also has a pretty strong, and that's my job to know kind of who's doing what, which kind of, if I may, gives me the opportunity to kind of sit back and kind of look and see, kind of what trends are happening. And it is I want to convey this to your audience, and I say this like 3 times a day, it's extremely early in the Amazon world. I know it's hard. You live it. Probably half the guys that people that are listening to this live it every day. They bump into competition. You guys go to the same webinars. You talk it all day. It seems really crowded, right? But it's extremely early. The largest agency in the space, again, I only talk agency stuff, but it has 200 employees. Okay, I come from a world where the largest agency in the world has 10,000 employees. Okay,
Who's the largest agency?
it'd be WPP and Publis and those guys. They actually own swaths of other agencies, but and they're the largest agency in the world. And so
I know the largest agency in our industry, though.
Oh, in our industry, that would be buy box experts,
Yeah,
by number of employees. I don't want to. Yeah, we'll just leave it there. I don't want to go into specific numbers, but it'd say it's around a couple hundred. They're crossing that mark.
No, I love those guys though.
Yeah, I do too, and I just don't want to share anything, whatever. But I think they would say the same, and they're proud to be the largest and have benefited from that, and they're awesome. But there are some others that are maybe more at the 50 stage or maybe the 75 stage that are coming in strong too.
And even smaller that do amazing
longer,
work.
yeah.
I mean, like, I'll just go ahead and give a shout out to Marknology, because I've worked with them before and they do amazing work.
Yeah, Andrew's awesome.
So creative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, his whole team, like Veronica, like the whole team is super creative, very collaborative. And sometimes I kind of think of them as boutique. So like you might, or like Daniela, you've got certain people in the industry that have like general knowledge, but specific skill sets.
Yeah.
And they've got a certain je ne sais quoi that you might vibe with, and that might be a great fit for you. Or you might want to go with a great big agency, or again, you might want to a la carte your whole situation.
Yeah.
And obviously I advocate that, because that way you get to pick and choose. But I mean, I think that probably when I have my brand and I create my artisanal product that I'm going to make after I retire, I think that probably I will hire an agency. I like to say that I would just piece it together with what I know from the industry, but I think that probably when you're busy making a product, it's beneficial to, at least for a period of time, work with an agency that's got a good strategic focus and direction.
Yeah, absolutely. You could easily get into a relationship with an agency where you're spending a lot of money and you're getting very little benefit, and that's very common. It's very common. In less common in this space because I think there's less activity right now, but very common in the traditional agency space. There's a lot of hype and a lot of fluff. But that said, there's people doing great work. You mentioned a couple of them where, when they open their mouths, you're like, oh, okay, they know what they're doing, right? And you're like, and you defer the keys to them, like, okay, I'm just going to hire the best. And I would just say that one of the healthiest really agencies I think out there, I'll use the word healthy, maybe in terms of revenue and things along those lines. Would be like a Podine or like a market defense, where market defense, and again, it is really just a core group of of a team where and is outsourcing to the best players for now. And as a result of that, has the best service, I think, and is also growing the fastest. So it's just different approaches. And I don't want to pick on anybody or name drop or anything along those lines, but it's just every business model in this space is just almost up for grabs. There's all kinds of different agencies. There's all kinds of different, like for instance, there's agencies that it's very common in this space, unheard of in traditional agencies, is asking for a percentage of the sales, right? And so we're going to lower our bill maybe down to 0, and as an agency, and we'll take 15% or 5% of sales, right? Well, if I did that to P&G, if I walked down, I'm in Cincinnati, if I walked down the street and asked, say, hey, here's a proposal, I want 15% of your Purell sales, they would throw me out of the towers, right? And so what I mean by that is that, that's an unusual anomaly here, okay? Another unusual anomaly is as a seller, right? You can borrow money based on your future Amazon sales and pay back based on sales. Okay, so that's another unique option that doesn't exist outside of this ecosphere. You cannot get money from the bank, that way, and by the way, without giving any equity away, also. So you can't get an investor either. So that's just unique, and so that's a financial vehicle that exists for the first time in this space. And I would challenge that there's other things, especially logistically and with this distribution and all that kind of stuff. It's all up for grabs. And then I'll just wax poetically one last way and just say that, again, it's very, very early and we're just getting started, and it's hard even just to figure out the .com, but guess what? There's 15 other marketplaces in 52 other countries too.
Another one just got announced. Pakistan just got announced.
Pakistan?
Yeah, and they're letting people sign up for free to be sellers. So that's super exciting.
Yeah.
I like to say Amazon e-commerce, this whole ecosystem was in its infancy, and I think that COVID has pushed it into toddlerhood, early toddlerhood, faster than it would have. I've been part of the industry unofficially since 2014, officially since 2016, and I've seen a lot of changes. But I also see more and more things like Chris was talking about cropping up that are just completely specific to this industry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that you have to think about, in that you can't go and hire an ad agency in New York that doesn't know e-commerce and have them, make you successful on any given marketplace. You have to work within industry in order to succeed in this industry. And I don't know, it's a chicken and egg thing, right? How did that happen? Did we do that? Is it our fault? Is it Amazon? I mean, is it just the unique nature of this business and the challenges associated with selling on Amazon? Because Lord knows there are so many of them.
It was created by Jeff Bezos, and we're all living in the wake of it. And think about it, there's no developer program here. Microsoft, the first thing they did was put a developer program so you get certified in these tools, and you knew that somebody that was certified was a certain skill level. You could hire them, and there was experience, and there's college courses on how to use Word, and all the way up to programming in MSDN or whatever. And so, but there's none of that here. And in fact, there's no one to call. And then I would even contend that there's the community, we form the community that helps people. There's really no place for somebody to just kind of go and ask a question, and get an answer, and I would say that actually is slowing. Here's my big theory, right? You can tell me that this is bunk, right? But I think it's actually slowing down the marketplace. I think it's actually a bad decision on Amazon's part, because it affects the user's experience, right? If the information's not there, if the picture's not there, if it's not descriptive, right? If it's not, I'm not going to buy that product, which obviously hurts everybody, including Amazon, but moreover, it's more likely to get returned. It's most likely to have support questions around it. It's more likely to, and so what I mean is that I don't know why they're not populating, some sort of, again, college programs or whatever. And I know a country that is, which is interesting. Another interesting information is all this talent is coming from the Philippines. Okay. If you want to hire in this space right now, you probably will not be able to hire in this space, especially at the exec level and butts and seats too. The PPC folks and stuff, you can't hire them in the US. I know this because I work with a lot of recruiters and things, but most of those employees, in fact, one of the companies, some of the companies I mentioned, a good chunk, like 40% of their employees are from the Philippines. Okay.
There
And
are a large group of people in the Philippines that understand this industry really, really well.
yes,
That's how Yoni Kaminsky,
yeah,
his company, all of his people like get it,
yes.
but they just
Link,
are
yeah,
sitting in the Philippines.
yeah. Just link to multiply me just
Yeah, oh
for
yeah. Well,
for
I'm jotting down everybody
yeah,
we're
we're
mentioning
we're
so
doing
that
favors for you, but yeah, the thing was is that he was an early recognized that the Philippines is native English speaking. That's highly educated. Almost every citizen goes college educated. Okay. They also had primed this maybe about the last 20 years doing the virtual VA thing, which is kind of what you think of when you hear the word VA. It's kind of like, oh, I've got my I got my assistant or whatever. That's virtual, which is great, and they killed it on that. But the president of the company came down from on high, and the university system, everybody came down to train a high-tech workforce. And a large chunk of that they're realizing is Amazon skill sets. And guess what? They're killing it. And so, I mean, the whole country is employed, in COVID times and smart. I wish, and last thing is altruistic. I wish the US in this current environment, I would encourage anybody that's unemployed, that's listening to this, or knows somebody that's unemployed, that comes from the digital world, or knows anything about marketing, or really anything about anything. I mean, if they're a lawyer or an accountant, just add Amazon to it in the front of it, and it's crickets over here. It's blue sky. There's tons of opportunity, and it's the next 20 years. Okay, it's the
but
next
the
20
thing
years.
is, he's right, right? There are those, it's absolutely true. There's so much opportunity in this space, but you have to understand this space in order to be successful
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
And that's when you get down to vetting the people that you work with, vetting your partners. I've actually heard from so many traditional digital advertising agencies that were asking me, okay, how do I learn Amazon? And I'm like, do you have several weeks? Because it's
right.
going to take that long, and everybody at your organization has to learn it. And you're going to have questions. And another thing that you said earlier struck me, and that's that, like, it's not like you can call Amazon up and say, hey, I'm a digital marketing agency that would really like to learn how to support third party sellers on the Amazon marketplace.
Mhm.
And you can't call up Amazon and say, hey, I'm a third party seller on the Amazon marketplace, and I'd really like some advice on how to optimize my listing.
Right.
There is plenty of documentation in Seller Central, but Amazon has grown so quickly that things like Seller Central help documentation, rules and regulations, terms of service,
FAQ,
FAQ, who to contact. I mean, you'll get a hold of somebody and they don't know because there's no playbook
right.
for a lot of things. So it's still very much the Wild West on .com, and most of the other marketplaces are a couple years behind .com. There are things I was talking to Yana, well, to definitely link to YLT, because if you're looking for international expansion, you need
Yes.
localization and translation, and she's really good at
It's
that.
the only choice. Yeah.
Um,
Boy, you're
but
gonna make lots of affiliate dollars here, man.
I don't do affiliate,
Yep, yep.
so no, I'm not.
We should. I don't
I just
know.
purely believe in these
Little
people. But
kickback.
I was talking to her about, um, because we've gotten some complaints from brands that are selling on .co.uk, they're selling on .de, they're selling on other international marketplaces, and they're like, I don't understand why I can't do this with my advertising. It's just not available yet on that platform.
Mhm.
And she also said, some rules and regulations, some TOS that exists on .com doesn't exist on .de or .es,
Yeah.
or, so you can get away with some things
Right.
in those marketplaces that you can't get away with in the US, but you have to be really, really careful. So, understanding as a seller You have to understand the rules. You can't go back to Amazon ever and say, "Oh, sorry, I didn't know that that was a rule. I'm sorry, I didn't understand. It was worded weird."
You
You
won't have the
know,
chance to apologize. So
no, and there's no excuse. It's your job to know, it's your job to understand, it's your job to interpret,
right,
even if the internal employees at Amazon don't take interpretation as seriously as you do.
correct.
Um, and that happens a lot. I worked with reviews because that's obviously a huge deal for anybody selling on Amazon, but especially brand owners. You've got to have those reviews. That
Yeah,
like powers the flywheel, right? So I mean, you get the reviews, and then you get more sales, and you get reviews, and you also get increased visibility. And if you've got lots and lots of bad reviews, it's really, really bad. It's harder and harder to get reviews, you know? And
yeah,
everybody that I talk to, they're like, what should I do? And I'm like, well, first of all, automate your review requests. So I have for everybody to Feedback 5, so I'll mention them.
awesome. There's another one.
Um, but you also have to get more sales. I mean,
Yep.
Amazon themselves are sending out review requests. If you are sending your one through the request a review on the order details page, then you're doing what you can to get more reviews. But I think that the consumer world is getting a little more savvy about reviews. Like I should leave a review for that because I understand that it helps,
Right.
you
I
know.
wish that Amazon would get serious about reviews. I mean,
Well, they are serious about reviews. That's the
half of them are
problem is that
fake.
Amazon's serious about reviews, but they're also like, I don't know what to do about reviews, you know?
I'm just commenting that it's been proven that half of the reviews on Amazon are fake, and so which hurts the customer experience. I mean, his primary raison d'etre is supposed to be about customer experience, right? And so why would if you read a review and then you clearly got the object and it was like wasn't for that object or was clearly like canned or whatever. But if you want to play in the game right now, you kind of have to put a gray hat on in the. I mean, you may
No,
disagree with
you
that.
were never
Well,
supposed to
you
put a
may
gray
dis
hat on. Don't
yeah.
tell people to wear gray hats.
I know,
Um,
but you know what I mean. I'm not saying that, but I mean, you're going to find that the competition from China not only replicated your product, but also has fake reviews too. And there's
well, and
some,
they had global reviews, and now that's gone. Global review now your reviews are specific to your marketplace, and I think that we're coming up on a change,
yes,
but it's not happening fast enough,
correct.
because
Well, it's
now
happening fast, but nobody can track it.
it's happening fast in a really bad way, though. I mean, like,
Yeah,
no more global reviews. You can't comment on reviews anymore. You can't address people's problems. And that's not even like the real, I mean, it was devastating to not be able to do incentivized reviews. And that's
yeah,
not just paying for a review, but like, here, test out my product and please leave a review. That was
sure.
great for lots of people. And people are still doing it, by the way, even though it's completely against Amazon seller
You're
policy.
not those little cards. Are you allowed to do those? When
Yeah.
you're not allowed
Yeah.
to put
I
it
mean,
in. Almost half of
you
them I
can
get.
you can request a review on an insert, I think. You'd have to check with an
Okay.
expert because I'm not an expert on that
Oh,
anymore.
okay.
But you
I was just
can't do
curious.
that and offer a coupon on the same insert,
Oh, I see. I see.
you
Oh,
know,
interesting.
because then that's incentivized. You've
Oh, I see. Wait, I get free, yeah, I get free stuff all, anyway, whatever. Well, I'm curious what the answer is on that because the little card, it says you get a free product and I've left the review and then I send them a screenshot of the review and I got the free product. So
Yeah, that's totally
I do
against the
that.
rule.
Oh, okay. As a consumer, I do it all the time. I would never
Well,
recommend it.
they're not going to take away your consumer account
Right, exactly.
for
That's
doing
for
that.
sure. I hope not. Geez. But
Well,
yeah,
man, and I agree that I don't think that it's been taken seriously enough at Amazon. I mean, I was working with a big brand who was having an upvote problem. Like, somebody was thumbsing up the negative reviews.
yeah,
Like, they had one negative review out of 400
right.
reviews,
They
and
got
it
a text. Yeah,
had 400 thumbs up, and none of the other reviews had any thumbs up or so obviously that's fishy, but they contacted Amazon, and Amazon said, we have no way of seeing who gave it a.
okay, first of all, that's crap. And second of all, because I mean, seriously, there's tools right now that like help me like fake spot or what am I thinking of? Some of the the tools you run, and they're not perfect, right? It's an algorithm that figures out most likely these listings are, comprised or completely or a part of fake reviews, right? So it technically can be challenged. Now, obviously, it has to go to human maybe for review to actually make sure of that, but they can stop it. The short answer is they want more reviews because they want people to buy more. I mean, you're going to buy a product that has more reviews, and you're going to read maybe 2 of them, and you may or may not be aware that one of them is fake. But anyway, that's just my rant on reviews. I think it could be much more cleaned up because I think it's critical. It's how I came to Amazon. It was, for me, that's why I ordered from Amazon for the first time, because I can read about the product. I can and then I can do my own research through these these people that own the product, right? And now I'm going to buy this because of the reviews. That was the kind of the first time from an e-commerce standpoint that that hooked me, right? And I think that's true. Maybe was a hook for Amazon in general, was that review feature, but they've woefully languished with it, I think, in my opinion. But anyway, I'll stop.
I want to pause and ask everybody here to pop in the chat if you remember the first thing you ever bought on Amazon.
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a good question.
Go ahead and pop it in the chat, y'all. A book. Me too, Laura. I bought a textbook, a book.
What year?
For me, it was 2004. I want to say I'm a late bloomer. Anybody else? More books? More books.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael bought a book around 2000.
Yeah, that's about what I was too, I think.
And I was in college. Phone case circa 2012 for Kindle. Right on. Books for Mayor. Yeah, I mean, it was a bookseller, right?
It was.
And I remember people talking about it when I was in college, saying, yeah, I order my books online. And I'm like, I've never had a computer before, which is weird considering what I do now. But, I didn't, and it really shows my age because.
Well, that's not fair because I'm older than you. And so what I'm going to say is that, I remember reading about them in Forbes or something in 1998 or something, and that was like the pre-IPO. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, you're going to sell books. I mean, how can you make that profitable? It's like, it takes too much to ship a book, right? Was I wrong? Wrong like 15 times, but I've got reason being is I've gone through the .com days. I was wrong on a lot of things in the .com days as well. And this environment reminds me exactly of that again. I mean, if you will, it's 1997 post Netscape, or it's 2001 post Google AdWords launch, something along those lines. But that's the environment we're in right now, and I get that same feeling. And I'm old, so I can say these things like, I remember back when, and it's just all the signs are there, the ridiculous evaluations for, if I may, for the players in the space right now, the mergers that are still going to happen, the consolidation that still has to happen, the professionalism that has to happen, that still has to come in. I don't mean that in the way it sounds, but there's not a lot of gray hair in this space. Stop me. And then, but it's just a maturation, I think, that has to happen. But it's the lightning strike moments that back in the day I would have used the term inside the tornado. Okay, that if somebody's old enough to remember that, you're old like me. But it was a guy that wrote a Harvard study book, a famous author back in the 90s, that had a series of books on the .com type phenomena of companies. And the first stage is inside the tornado, where things are crazy. You can't hire for this stuff. Back in the day, like if you knew HTML, you learned, you were killing it. You double your salary. It's the same thing here. Same thing happening. Young companies that are going to get bought up, and there's going to be some ridiculous IPOs. And things along those lines, and then it'll taper off in 6 or 7 years to be a correction. The .com bubble, the Amazon.com bubble will burst. I would say it's probably going to be more like 20 years, but anyway, regardless, Amazon. Is that the answer? More Amazon? So
more Amazon. But
more Amazon.
I mean, I am seeing some pretty amazing growth with brands that are selling on other channels. So
True.
like Walmart specifically, we have some brands just killing it on Walmart.
Yeah, Instacart is also a great one.
Well, Walmart is so nice to work with, in terms, like, if you're a third party seller, it's like they've learned a little bit
they're trying to woo you guys. They're trying to woo sellers over to their platform. They have about 8% of the traffic of Amazon. Just by the way, did you see that the marketplace grew 60% last quarter?
Thanks, COVID.
Yeah, I mean that's just amazing. I mean, think about that. I mean, that's stunning. But yeah, but Instacart's great to deal with too. They have a real program with like a real rep on the other side, and they're welcoming because they know that they want brands on their platform too. And so yes, there are others out there.
Oh, Laura feels that for 1P, Walmart is harder. Laura, email me and let me see if I can help you.
Yeah.
We
But
also, Lee asked a good question. This is a tactical, like brain twisty question. So let's see if we can help. Can
sure.
we discuss the difficulty of reaching support for gated category product selling permission? I have been struggling with getting permission to sell in OTC drug category. So over the counter drug, we are a respected company in the US. I cannot get approval. Where can I go for help?
I have a resource for you. Or actually a couple of resources I'd point to you, but just clarify, I'm not the expert in the expert. I'm an expert in the experts, and so I can't answer that.
That's what she's asking though. Like, who can you refer me to get ungated
We have
here?
to talk about it a little bit more. I'd have to think about it a little more. I mean, and go back to my network. I don't want to be cagey. It's just not provide the answer, but I encourage us to reach out to me because it just depends on what you're trying. You mentioned the drug category, and the hair goes up my back on my neck. It's just going to require a different Mr. Wolf. I guess I'm Mr. Wolf. It's going to require somebody to clean up that for you, and it's going to have to make some calls on that one.
So can I send her your email address?
Please, of course.
Which is Chris at nReach.com.
At nReach, without an I, nReach.com. And as with anybody, if you have any questions, anybody, please reach out. Happy to help.
And that is a whole different kettle of fish than it used to be, right? Because like back in the Wild West retail arbitrage, you could just go to the end cap at Rite Aid and scan a bunch of stuff with your seller app and send in this razor and this stuffed animal and this, because I did that.
Yeah, arbitrage has had its day. But that's where we all came from. I mean, it's all where I shouldn't say we, but all of us. But I mean, it's just where kind of everything rooted from.
But back then, all of a sudden, Amazon was like, "Hey, if you're going to sell this brand, you kind of need an invoice from the brand to prove that you're allowed to sell it."
Yeah, but real quick to that last question, the other thing that hasn't been mentioned really is Amazon Fresh and Whole Foods. That there's for lack of a better description, Prime has got its own challenges, and that's where most of us operate all the time. And there's all kinds of stuff and good work being done in that space. And may you have a partner in that space. I wish you the best and can help you with that. But then there's this chasm, and then there's Fresh, okay? And there's I think I'm saying this correctly. I'm fair to saying this because I've hunted for them. There's actually only one agency in the world that actually does Fresh. Will walk a brand up to the application process. You get Whole Foods and Fresh, so there's a retail thing going on there. But again, to the person that asked the question, there may be opportunities there also. And so just don't, even if you're a cosmetic brand, the lipstick, you can get lipstick at Whole Foods, and so, or Amazon Fresh. And so there's still a play there. And I'd say actually a third of the products I see probably should be investigating that channel as well. But it takes a completely different agency and a completely different set of skills. You think if we're rare over here for unicorns over here, those are like unicorns with plumage and rainbows or something. I don't know. So just to clarify that.
Purple unicorns with swirl tails and extra sparkles and extra sprinkles. This is a great question, and I don't think that we can tackle it fully. Cameron asks, we like fulfilling our own orders as we give it the family personal touch. But it appears that Amazon is going toward trying to get everything FBA. What are some ways to compete while being FBM? I've got some thoughts on that in terms of your keyword strategy, how you're advertising your listings, how you're managing your supply chain so that your fulfillment speed is fast enough so you don't get that like prime search, because so many people go and they type in a keyword and then they sort by prime and then they sort by star rating. So if you don't have the Prime part of it, your price needs to be right. Your listing needs to be absolutely perfect. Your product photography's got to be amazing. You've got to be putting enough ad dollars behind it to get it seen, and you've got to make sure your fulfillment is as fast as humanly possible, and that your reviews are good, and that your seller feedback is good. There are ways to do all that. That sounds overwhelming, but there are ways to do all of that. So Cameron, do email me and let's have a little sit down strategy session, because I've got some ideas for you. That was a good question though. I like that too. I have a friend in New York. I don't know if he's still selling or not, but he would merchant fulfill all of his stuff because he had a certain way he liked to package things. And it was a luxury item, and he was like, you know what, I don't want to send it and have it put in a box with somebody's, like, you know, diapers and pacifier and, you know, hemorrhoid ring. You know, I need my stuff to be special. So
Sure.
it's hard to talk somebody into FBA when that's how they're thinking about FBA, you know?
Right, right. So my answer would be just what you said. I mean, I know, again, I'm the expert in the experts. Even if I would know that, I know enough to know that it probably changed since I've known it, if that makes sense. So you guys are, you know, you're drinking from the hose, and I admire that. I'm just going to stand over the side and respect the fact that you are, you know, you're following all this and are the experts in it. So, yep.
All right. And Lee actually says she knows you and has worked together with you in the past, and she will call you.
Oh, awesome.
So
Great.
she has
Thank
your
you so much.
number.
Well, there we
Watch
go.
out for that.
It's a good number to have.
So let's talk a little bit about technology, because there are just a couple of things that I want you to always think about when choosing technology. And even when you have a full service agency, sometimes there are things that full service agencies don't do, right? Um, and then there are companies that are a combination of technology and service, like us, like Gatita, you know, that perform certain functions. We're actually getting ready to perform more functions, but the number one thing that you always have to think about when you're choosing a technology partner is that they've got to be in the Amazon App Store. That means that Amazon knows that they're accessing data from Amazon through an API, right? Because got to have that permission.
Yeah, and they're cracked down, way down on that too, by the way. Amazon does not like people accessing their data. And so, yeah, they have a trusted set of partners, and you need that app status. Yeah.
So yeah, they've got to be in the App Store. I don't know exactly what to tell you about the reviews in the App Store. I think that's even further behind the reviews on products.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
I don't think that we've seen like a huge problem with it here at Takeometrics, but I know that I've talked to a lot of other companies that are providers that are like, man, it's really hard to get reviews on the App Store. Or I just, you know, my
It's
competitor
pathetic.
just got 60 in one day. How did that
Yeah,
happen?
it's pathetic, and it really, I think it's just hurting. I mean, maybe they're in a well, it's obviously they're in a globe grabbing mode, right? They're just grabbing real estate as fast as they can and just shoving it through the systems and rewiring everything, right? So it's sort of forgivable, but they have a lot of money, you know, and why don't you just develop out your support more, you know? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's, I mean, you know, I mean, it's like there's so many aspects to it. How could you support this? Could you support like all of these things if you were Amazon? I don't know. I don't think you could do it internally, right? So anyway, I don't know, I'm
But
waxing, but
why build it if you're not gonna make it good or know how it works, or
it's
you
great.
know?
You
But I
order a
guess,
product and it shows up on your door. And 2 days later, maybe one, maybe a
and
couple hours
that's
if you
all,
want.
and that's all that needs to work.
Right.
Unfortunately, when you're a third party seller or brand owner on Amazon, you sure wish that other stuff would work. And when you're a technology or a service provider. So yeah, tip number one when choosing software, definitely pick somebody that's in the App Store. That means they're allowed to access Amazon's data and they're going to be around for a while, instead of accessing Amazon's data all willy-nilly and then getting shut down. to listen to the industry. It's here. It's on Clubhouse. There are webinars like this. There are podcasts. I've got a list. If you want them, email me, ldowning@takeometrics.com. I've got a list of podcasts of interest. Um, there are people like Chris. I think he doesn't deal with software a whole lot. But there's also, we just did a giveaway yesterday with the Ecom Collective, which is a group of sellers and service and software providers that it's just a free resource for the seller community. You can sign up, you can ask any question you want to the email address. Somebody will answer you, and I think it's like 24 hours. And they go through the whole network. Oh, okay, that specialist knows this, and then they pluck that out. Add to the fact that we've all of the people that are participating have given some sort of significant item or service of value that you can win. So yesterday, I think we gave away over $100,000 worth of software and services over the course of like 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock last night. It was like pretty fun and amazing, and it was
great.
Yoni. And of course I thought, okay, I'm just gonna like do the giveaway, and he gets on and he's like, talk to me about this and tell me about this, and I'm like, of course. He makes everything so much more valuable because he's got such an inquisitive mind. It's amazing and so much fun. And that's Gatita. We'll link to them too. If you've got reimbursements that Amazon owes you, they find that. So that's a super thing, and a lot of agencies don't do that for you.
No.
So that's a different kind of thing that you would need to be an add-on.
Yeah, like a bolt-on. Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. You know, you are maybe I'm going to give in a little bit. There is no such thing as a full service agency. You by default have to kind of piecemeal some of this stuff. Ideally, you have a good agency that covers the core, obviously, and works together, because I think some of these parts move best together. But yeah, it's you're only as good as, I think you made the Wild West analogy, so I'll run with that. Is that you're really only as good as the posse that you have, you know, and there is no sheriff. So
yeah,
good luck with that.
right. Although I have strong opinions. I have strong opinions, and I have people that I think are amazing at their work. So if anybody actually wants to know what my dream team would be, if you didn't want to go with a full service agency, but you did need to get everything done, I will go ahead and put the work in to put together my dream team of software and service providers, and hand that over to you, because that's fun for me. And it's not like I don't have enough to do with a webinar a week.
Well, I would be interested in that, Liz. I think I can speak for everyone listening. It would probably be very interesting.
You're gonna give it to all the agencies and be like, "Look what Liz did. We hate her now, right?"
Yeah,
No,
yeah. And by the way, you just did my job for me. Thank you, appreciate it, for free. Awesome, thanks.
Oh, Stu says we're crushing it with driving sponsored traffic to brand stores. Conversion rates are like 30% or more. Are you seeing this across accounts? It is absolutely working to do sponsored traffic to brand stores right now. That's a great strategy, and we're seeing that be like killer. So Stu, keep on rocking with that. It's a great thing to do.
I would just add, maybe in that vein, I would just add, you know, there's the opportunity of DSP as well. There aren't a lot of people that are doing Amazon.
Man.
There are not a lot of people doing Amazon DSP. If you're looking Fireline, I mean, that's where to be. And the targeting, you can do that, blows Google out of the water. And but there's a layer. I will just say that it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, Liz, there's a certain layer where it applies, right? It's not for smaller. It's kind of expensive. It's a little, not for maybe smaller sellers to get all the mechanism. You need a budget to work with, right?
Yeah, and you've got to kind of have the right ingredients, you know, for it to be really, really effective. But you don't really have to be great big though, because we're seeing it work for a lot of different size brands.
Okay.
And you don't have that $35,000 minimum buy-in when you work with us, because
with you, yes.
Yeah, and with other providers.
Yeah, but with you.
But with us. And you should work with us because we're really, really good at it.
Yes.
And we've got some amazing things happening with DSP, actually. We can't do case studies fast enough, you know what I mean? Because we're just like trying to rock and roll these accounts. But
the importance there is, it just so everybody knows, whether you're big or small brand. I mean, if you look at all the ad dollars spent, the digital ad dollars that are spent around the world. But right now, you know, it used to be Google and Facebook, and then it was some, you know, Bing and some others. Well, Amazon now owns a third of that and climbing. And so this is advertising off of Amazon, but also non-Amazon products. Like for instance, the top advertiser on Amazon, I learned this, is State Farm. Okay, they don't have a product on Amazon. All right, so that's an opportunity for them, for others to bring brands in that maybe you didn't think of Amazon. But if somebody buys a car, a car part, or buys, maybe you can Google will tell you when you bought your first car. Okay, because they know when you bought parts and you maybe bought the fuzzy wheel cover and that kind of stuff. So they can figure out that, okay, you just bought a new car or first car, right? Well, State Farm wants to know that, right? And they're going to target that person for insurance, right? It's brilliant, and they know it. And so, but outside of that, also Amazon's got, just like Google and Facebook and others, have a widespread ad not only just on their platform but elsewhere as well. And so that's basically DSP is their entire digital service platform. Okay. That said, everybody knows that's probably listening, blah, 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 just, told everybody something they knew. But the problem is that is brand new, and there's very few people that can, that are players that even have access to it. You have to have a certain spend. Correct me for Liz, I don't remember what the number is. It's like it might be over $1 million a year in spend, just to be invited to the program. So you and I can't, the smaller sellers can't even get in the door. So they have to work through a third party. Like Liz and others that are out there. There's a handful that have this, and even that handful, if I may, are trying to figure it out, trying to hire for it, and just trying to run as fast with it. It will be the $1 billion play, and an advantage for sellers and everyone that adopts it soon enough, or sooner than later.
So those of you that are still hanging out, raise your hand in GoToWebinar if you're currently running DSP ads. I'm just curious. Cameron is. Laura is. Good. Good.
Cool.
Not a ton of you, actually. Yeah, it's definitely, that's actually what I'm speaking with Jason Boyce and Peter Kearns about at Prosper in a few months. Is we're talking about the amazing, oh, and Meyer's going to start soon. If you need help with that, call me. But yeah, we're talking about the power of all of these different options, and we're doing a special focus on DSP. Also, I'm going to include a link. I've got a special page for the Prosper Show because I'm on the advisory council that's got a coupon. So if you guys want to go to it, you can use this coupon and get $100 off your ticket. And we're also doing next week's webinars on Wednesday, doing all these weird days, guys. You think I had something to do on Tuesdays. I don't. I just think, I should be doing a webinar. But next week, I've got some Prosper Advisory Council members and Brian Anderson, who's the conference coordinator, joining me to talk a little bit about what the agenda is going to look like, what kind of safety measures are in place, where all the secret events are, where the parties are.
Hey.
All that kind of stuff. So you guys should tune into that. That's on our webinars page on takeometrics.com.
Is there a keynote yet for that? Keynote speaker? I'm just curious if you guys picked one yet.
I think so.
Okay.
Brian is taking a much needed vacation right this second,
Okay.
but hopefully we'll be able to tease that out during the webinar next week. So
listeners, come to Prosper. I know there's a question, like some are and some aren't, but I am, so come meet me. Cool.
I'll be there too. And it'll be so much fun.
I look forward to meeting you for the first time, Liz. So.
And yeah, Chris and I have never met in person.
I've never met anybody in this space ever. Shaking hands. There's a couple of people I work with locally, but we've had coffee, but that's it.
I've been at Takeometrics since August, and the only person I've ever met in person from this organization is Jason Mickey, who I knew before he or I worked here. So I haven't met my boss. I haven't met Alistair. I haven't met the people I work closest to in person yet, because this COVID thing has been so weird. Yes, Laura, Prosper is in person this year. The special workshop day is July 13th. The actual show is the 14th and the 15th. It's at the Westgate in Las Vegas. Yeah.
She can get you a coupon, but I do know, like, I got an email today. Today's the last day of the early bird discount. It's actually substantial. So just, if you're gonna make a decision, probably best today, and then use the coupon after that.
Shoot me that link, Chris, and
Um,
I'll.
they just emailed it out. If you've signed up, you got that newsletter today, I think, or whatever that email today.
Okay, so try to take care of early bird, and if not, I've got $100 off coupon code that you can attend. There is not going to be an online component. It's going to be in person only. I think that they released some of the content afterwards, and there are going to be a couple of webinars leading up to it that you should attend. But yeah, that was just like the ending. Hey, we're going to prosper, and we're super excited about it. But tune
Yay.
in for a webinar next week. Chris, you'll sign up for it and not come, but
I
you can
will.
watch it later.
Hey, I listened to it later. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, Chris, thank you so much. This has been so fun.
Pleasure.
And thank you everybody for attending an odd Thursday webinar, but I hope you learned something. If you've got any questions, you can email either of us. And thank you for that, Michael. That's awesome. And Mark, contact Chris with that question.
Sure.
We're at the top of the hour, but thanks again. We'll see you guys next week. Chris, thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
You
much.
rock
Always
the
a pleasure,
most.
guys. Thanks, guys.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.